Hey, all you interns out there, welcome back to DIY and That. I'm your host, Mr. DIY, proud owner of the world's dirtiest hat. Today, we're going to start working on the restoration of a Walker Turner driver line jigsaw. As far as what I know is not working on it, got a few things that need attention. The table, let's see if I can get it, is very loose and it's tilted back towards the back of the machine. I think it just needs to be shimmed. I can't seem to do anything with it at the moment because the nut that's holding it on is rusted. So I'm going to have to get that open. So that's one thing. Most of these heavier machines have a blower on them. There's a tube here, and what that does is it blows air across the cut, so you can see your cut line better. Because this the jigsaw, because the blade has small teeth on it, it's going to generate a lot of fine dust, and it covers the cut line pretty quickly. So that the tube is missing, and I'm not quite sure where it goes. They often come off the top of the mechanism here, and there is what looks like it had been a port at one time. However, the seller was kind enough to find online a page from the catalog when this was sold, and it looks like it said something about a internal blower that was somewhere in the base of it, and I haven't looked underneath it, so I'm not sure. I'll have to check that out. But this certainly looks like the standard flexible tube would come off there, and where am I at? There, and come down to here. So I'm not sure what that's about. We'll have to take a look at that. So that has to be fixed. The reason I think that might be true is because back here, I hope you can see this, there is a knob. It's knurled, and it certainly looks like an adjuster for something, but why there would be an adjustment for something on the back here, I don't know, unless it was for that air system. So I'm guessing, well, we need further investigation. Something's off with it a little bit, and we'll have to figure that out, but that's not a huge deal. We can always rig something up if we have to. I just noticed, I thought there wasn't any paint on this, but I just noticed that there is some paint flaking off back there, and it's gray, and it looks like there's some red underneath it that might have been primer. I'm not positive, but it may have been red originally. Red is one of the colors I'm considering for the finished project, so I'm not, I'll have to think about that a little bit. Somewhere back here there is, well, let me show you one other thing here. There's also this fitting, which certainly looks like an airline fitting. I have no idea what that would be for back at this part in the saw, unless it's for an airline. So maybe there is something internally in regard to that, but that may be for something else. I guess once we take it apart, we'll find out. Got to do a little more research on it. Down here, let's see that hopefully, there is a hole and two smaller holes above it. I'm thinking maybe the switch, the on-off switch, was here, and maybe that was a plate that said on one side, off on the other. I'm not sure. Again, I got to do more research on this particular machine to find out what that's about. The biggest issue with it at the moment is that the wiring is terrible. This looks like it had been chewed by a member of the Rodentia family at some point. Didn't actually see this run. The sellers told me that when they plugged it in, it kind of started to smoke, and they didn't trust it. They said the motor did run, and they were good people, so I'm sure it does run. But we need to do some wiring here to get this started. So I think that's the first thing I'm going to do, check to make sure the motor does actually run. I have a couple of extras in case there's a problem with it, in case the problem was with the motor itself. So we should be able to fix that. And I ended up cutting the wire because I did have to take the motor off to get this off the truck because it was so heavy. The overall machine was so heavy. Now this is real bad. Somebody rigged up a switch in the front that is obviously not original, and that switch is not enclosed in a box. So basically what you have behind that is you have exposed high voltage wiring, which is really a bad idea. So that is not safe. I'm not even going to attempt to use that switch. In fact, that's the first time I'm going to take off the machine, and I will rig up a power cord for it to test the motor. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's take this off, see what's behind there. See what they did. It's not quite as bad as I thought. I thought there'd be exposed terminals on the back of here. They are not. This looks like, oh, actually, let's see. No, the wire, apparently this switch came with the wires already inserted into it, so it's not quite as bad as I thought. But look at what they did as far as oh, well, there is exposed wiring there. So they did a real lousy job putting this together. It should have been wire nutted and taped properly, so it's not any one of those things. I can't, the wire is all cracked. Anyway, the insulation's all bad on it. I'm not going to waste my time trying to disconnect this properly. Let's just get rid of it. Pull that through. Switch does work. Yeah, might be able to reuse it. I'll hang on to it. So we got that out of the way. Let's go over to the motor. Let's see if we can rig something up to test, see whether the motor actually works. All right, I'll pull this plate off. Pull. Fortunately, things are a little greasy. It kept some of these screws from corroding, from rusting. So we're able to get them off. Let's see what we got in here. Oh boy, that's not looking too good either. I don't know if you can see in there or not, but let's get you a little closer. That ain't looking too good. The insulation is, and the wires is not too good. Actually, let me turn this around so you can, it's not in the shadow here. You can see in there that the insulation is pretty crappy. So I'm going to try to remove the rest of that cord there and see if we can hook something up to that to test the motor with. So we got up here, there's two different ones. There's one's got a knurled knob on it, and the other one's got a nut. So let me get go get the nut drivers and see if we can get that off of there. There we go. Uh-oh, lost the washer. Yeah, that's clearly that's not the kind of washer that was in there in the first place. That's something somebody just shoved in there. Should have a brass washer, not a steel one. And clearly it wouldn't have been anodized or painted like that when it was new. So obviously somebody has replaced the cord. They probably dropped the the nut that was on there and replaced it with that, which is fine. Just steel does not actually conduct electricity all that well, so it's generally not a good idea to use steel components when you are trying to hook an electrical circuit up. You're much better off. Now see, that one has the brass washer on it, which is what we should have. I'll have to see if I have a brass washer laying around that'll do this. Oops, dropped that one. And I think it's shut off somewhere. That's alright, we'll find that later. And pull that off. Now okay, there's a strain relief on this, which is good. However, it's not, all that was a bunch of tape and a washer on there. I think that washer may be original, but that tape looks pretty iffy, so we'll save the washer. So that doesn't look too bad. Let me get my electrical box and we'll see if we can rig something up here to power that up. Alright, so we'll put this back on here for now, just to test it. Where's the other end of this thing? This was a two-prong job. Back in the day, they didn't always ground things. So, what we'll do when we get to that point is, when we put the permanent items on here, what we'll do is we'll put a ground onto one of the screws holding the cover on, and that way this will be grounded. So if something does happen with the motor, it'll short circuit, and that will take, oh boogers. Okay, let me think a minute. Okay, the white wire was on the top, so let's put that on, shove these through here. We'll have to come up with a different strain relief when we do this for real. I might be able to find a grommet or something at the hardware store. If not, I will we'll put a actual electrical connector in there, even though that is not original. When you're doing restorations, the important thing with the electrical is that it's safe. The other issues are secondary, so we need to make sure that this is not going to shock anyone. So you may have to do some things on the electrical end that are not quite authentic, but we definitely don't want to leave this in a condition where it would cause a problem. We want to keep it as original as possible, but we also have to be sensible about it. Let me go find another washer that went flying. Couldn't find a brass washer, so I'm going to have to use a steel one for the time being. I'll have to, next time I go to the hardware store, I'll have to pick some up. Assuming they have such a thing nowadays, you never know. Alright. That is not held very good. Hold on a minute. When you're installing these, you have to make sure that you're not catching the insulation when you put the nut on, because the insulation will compress, and then you won't get a good bond with the terminal. And I think that's what I did there. I think the washer caught the insulation, and I wasn't getting a good connection there. Let's see. Washer's a little big. I'm going to strip this back a little further so it doesn't catch the insulation. And you don't want to hit the case on the motor either, because that could short circuit that. So make sure that the tails on that come coming out of there are not pressing against that. Not much room for your fingers in there, but it'll work eventually. Now that's pushing out. Alright, this is not quite working the way I want it to. I'm gonna hang on here a minute. I think what I'm gonna do is put some terminals on, put some spade terminals on the end of those wires temporarily, so that we get a better connection there. I don't want to monkey around with this, so even though this is only temporary, you still have to be careful. So let me go grab some of them. When we wire this permanently, I'll show you how to put these terminals on properly. I just put them on quickly here for this purpose. And with these, you do not need the washer, because the terminal itself serves as a washer, and you're better off putting the ring terminal on this than the I think I said spade ones earlier. I wouldn't put spades on there, because that the vibration from the motor could loosen the spade terminal up, and then the motor would either stop working, or you might actually get a short circuit, depending on which wire came off and whether it touched the case or not. Let's put that one on. Oops. All right. Now, let's give that a shot. I'm going to move the camera back so that just in case we have an explosion, we will not damage that. And let's see, come back here. And the good thing about doing it this way is I'm on the other end of the extension cord. I will not be right next to the motor if indeed there is something wrong with it. So let's see what happens. Okay, it's running. I don't see any smoke, so I think we're good with that. As I said, the people that sold it to me were very nice, and I'm sure they wouldn't have told me it worked if it didn't. So that's good. So let's shut that off and put the belt on it and see how we make out with that. Okay, didn't expect that. That's not good. I guess the set screw was not in that thing. Let's try it again. This was kind of interesting. The set screw on the pulley is slotted. It's not an Allen. I tried to put some Allen wrenches down in there and I couldn't get them to work. And then I went down there with a flashlight and it's actually the slot on it. So that's quite interesting. I also discovered that this is not the right pulley. I think this was replaced at some point. In fact, the pulley on the motor actually says Craftsman on it. So I think this was off another machine. The bore size is correct. However, let's get this back on here. All right, that is seated, and as you can see right here, there's supposed to be a nut that goes on here, and there's not enough thread to put the nut on. So what I'll do is I'll grind the end of this down further so that we can get a nut on it to secure it better. But for time being, think we can tighten it enough just to make sure everything works. All right, let's try that again. Okay. The pulley was on backwards when I took it off of there, and now I found out why. That is not the right belt either. That belt is too short. So we'll take this off. Just tapping this lightly to loosen this. You gotta be a little careful. You don't want to hurt the shaft or break the pulley. This is aluminum, it's cast, so it's not enormously strong. Yeah, these definitely were not the right ones on here, so we can make this work. I'm going to need to get a longer belt, and again, you can see that should be much longer than that. Part of the problem might be that there's a lot of play in the shaft. I wonder if that's what's causing the problem. Maybe it is the right pulley. Oh yeah, see that? The shaft has a lot of play in it, and it's when I push the pulley on it, shoving the shaft back, and it's not coming out where it should. So we might not have to modify that. We'll have to. We'll just have to get a. Just have to see if we can take up that play in the shaft there. It may be. There may be a thrust washer or something in there, or there's a bearing that's worn out. Once we take the mechanism apart, we'll have to see. All right, let's see if. Once again, let's try this. We're going to do it with the belt, right in front of my face, of course. And this is not tensioned properly because I can't get to the motor mounts and push it over because it's underneath. We're going to have to figure something out with that because the way this is set up, there's really no way to tension the motor from the top. You have to have it, you have to take the saw off the base in order to do something with that. To push the motor back, so we may have to come up with something on that, but let's see. Move the camera back just in case that flies off there again. Let's see if you got a good shot here. Are we looking in the right place? Looks like it. Let's try that again. Hey, it's working. Even cuts. Oh. All right. Happy, happy, joy, joy. Happy, happy, joy, joy. Happy, happy, joy, joy. Happy, happy, joy, joy.